Well, how is everybody? Hope things are good with you. It's early in the morning, and I want to walk you into this video because there's mistakes have been made. All right, so just know that on the front end. I did a video, one of the last videos I did. I talked about how to set your pinion angle. I had to do some edits to that video because in the process of making the video and paying attention to the video, I actually screwed up the pinion angle in my Mustang, and so I put the rear end in it, and so put the rear end in. I put it in it wrong. I had the wrong pinion angle. I put the rear end in it, and so put the rear end in. I put it in it wrong. I had the wrong pinion angle, and I found it. I caught it afterwards, and then I tore the distal tendon to my right bicep, so I couldn't fix it. So here I am. I know the rear end's in it wrong, and I've got to fix it, but I can't, because I've tore the distal tendon of my right arm. Anyway, long story short, I'm going to have to take the rear end back completely out of the Mustang, and I'm going to have to cut the spring perches off of it. The other thing is I didn't put the backing plates on for the disc brake stuff. So the axles, all the stuff I did with the mini locker, putting the axles in, putting the differential cover on it, sealing everything up, everything was wrong. It is a mistake, like a mistake, like a mistake. And so one of the things you just got to keep in mind when you're building a car is that you're just going to have those moments where you're going to do something only later to find that you've got to almost undo everything because you did it wrong. And so a lot of time have elapsed from my last video. Like I say, after I tore my distal tendon, honestly, there was just very little that I could do. So videos are going to start rolling pretty quick for the next little bit. So I've got to get the rear end out, cut the spring perches off. I've got to put the backing, I got to pull the axles out. I got to take apart the mini spool. I've got to pull the differential cover off. I've got to put the backing plates back on, the brake system on for the first time. And I am putting the old brake system for the Ford Explorer rear end. I've just got to put all that back in. I've got to put the axle back in, set the pinion angle, tack weld the spring perches in, then the axle's got to come back out, then I've got to weld that up, and then I've got to put it back in and mount it up. That's where this video is going to go, and that's where this video is going to stop. It is going to stop with that work. So this is going to be a whole lot of work, a lot of timed stuff. That's it. So that's the big deal. You're going to see more videos over the next little bit, but that's the update on the Born Again Mustang, and that's kind of where we are. It's exciting. Since I don't want to go to the store and buy a slide hammer, we're pulling the bearings out of that 8.8-inch rear end. I just didn't have a good comfort with it. We've got to build a slide hammer, and so here's some of the stuff that we're going to be using to build that slide hammer is some spikes, a piece of solid steel, and then some old black pipe that you use for your plumbing, and we're going to use all those together, and we're going to build us a heck of a slide hammer. That's what we're going to do, and we're going to pull some bearings out of this thing. It's going to be great, I promise you. Stay tuned. Okay, so here it is. This is the new slide hammer. If you'll notice, I welded a high-end piece of pipe on the end. This is a steel stake that you drive in the ground for a big like circus tent. And those are railroad spikes, discarded railroad spikes I might add. There's those. Then on the end I've got a bolt welded to it with some nuts, and when I go to slide hammering on this thing, you can come to learn whether my welds are suspect or not. But anyway, that's what we're gonna, that's the beginning of the slide hammer, to remove the bearings out of that rear end. The rear end that was in this car. Last time you and I were watching this video, I had put that rear end in, degreed it and everything. I wound up changing a few things on leaf springs, did not like how the rear end was degreed, and it was off a little bit for me, so I wound up cutting the spring perches back off, okay? This is a new set of spring perches. I had to buy another set of spring perches. Now in the middle of this, remember I tore my arm, my bicep, so I welded on a new set of spring perches. I've got those back on, and then I realized also that I'd forgotten to put the backing plates on the axles, so you got to pull the axles all the way back out, so I had to pull the spool back out that I'd already put in there. I had to drive a wedge in and get the stud girdle differential cover back off of it. So I basically undid everything that I had already done, and yeah, there's that. Okay, so we got the bearing out on the other side. Kind of showed you some of that. Got to take my little end piece off. So I'm going to show you how to do this. What I wound up finding out that I need to do, it's kind of been in my washer too. I'm having to whack the fool out of it to get that thing to come loose. But see, my washer's kind of, can you see that it's pancaking a little bit? So kind of varying out. This is the bearing. I'm going to keep it because what I'm going to wind up doing is using that. I'm going to grind down the edges in a drill press, and that will become my that'll become what I use to press the bearing and seal back in. I'll put a plate on it, and that'll become it. If I don't have one that fits, I might have one that fits. So here we go. We're going to try to get the seal out first. You just barely put this thing on the end, not super hard. And I ground one edge of this where it slides in there a little better on one side. So let me see here. So it goes in like this. So you go in the lip of the seal, you go up inside there, and then I drop it down in the seal. Then I add a few turns to it just to get it kind of, you know, tightened up. Now I'm going to pop this seal out. I'm going to clean it up a bit. Oh gosh, this thing's got some welding wire edges on it. Look at that, punched a hole in me, friggin' thing. So, let's see what we got here. I'm going to wind up using my left hand. Well, that's all right. All right, there's the seal. It pops right out. Now the seal pops out way easier than the bearing. I'll tell you that for sure. The bearing's a lot harder. Probably should have used a thicker plate on that thing. I just don't know how many of these I'm going to do. So there's that seal. Okay, now I'm going to grind this welding wire down. I'm tired of getting poked with it. I believe that's it. That thing's like a hypodermic needle. All right, now put this thing on just a tiny bit, like this. And then this is the side that I ground down. I've got a little edge on it, so I'm going to try to slide that in the bearing, just like that. My arm, my right arm, as you guys know, I tore my distal tendon. It's not feeling super good. It's not really enjoying this particular work. There it goes, right in there. All right. Bearings out. All right. Well, that was not as much fun as I thought it was going to be, but it's out. Got a good slide hammer built. It's pretty good. And the bearings are out. I think I'll feel better no matter what that these bearings are, that I'm replacing them. All right. And there she be. So here we are. What I'm doing right now is I'm building a seal and bearing installer for an 8.8 inch rear end. So what I did was I welded, this is just like a shock stud, I think. This is the bearing housing that I pulled out of the old bearing. I'm going to put these two together, but I've got to, both of these have to be smaller, but they need to be perfectly round. So I'll show you a way of doing that without having a lathe. I don't have a lathe. I'd like to have a lathe. If you were buying somebody a lathe, you said, man, I'm going to buy somebody a lathe. I hadn't bought anybody a lathe in a long time. Then you could buy me a lathe. I'd take it. But I'm going to show you a way of doing it, maybe. We'll see. See how bad off this is. That's pretty off. But we're going to do the best we can with it. So I'm going to do this in a grinder. Don't try this at home. Unless you just want to. So anyway, got to get my glasses on. This is where you put your eye out right here. So here we go. Okay, so we're back at the drill press. We got our little piece built, you can see here. So it's got the little bearing press on the side, the bearing outer shell for the bearing. On there, the plate that I built for the back with the stem that's going to use to drive the bearing and the seal into it. All I'm going to do is real quick, I'm going to put this belt sander on. I had a few people ask me about the belt sander. I bought this Ween, W-E-N, I guess that's the right pronunciation, belt sander some time ago. How's it doing? It's doing pretty good. I don't know. I've only used it about a dozen times. It's done everything I've wanted it to do. Doesn't take off material as fast as I thought it would, but it does a great job. Look at that. Still works. Okay. Oh, wow. That's bad. That's bad out of warp. That's warping it out. Do y'all see that? This may not work. May have to do it like this. Thought about it. I slowed my drill press down. I think it'll work on really low gear. Yeah, it's gonna work. Truth be known, you could put your drill in a vise and do the same thing. It's just what you got to do when you don't really have a lathe. You know what I'm saying? That looks pretty good. I'm going to give it a test fit before I grind anymore. It's kind of monotonous. See that little booger? You can make your own parts if need be. It's not that big of a deal. You don't have to have all the money. Yeah, let's check this out. First thing we're going to do here, there's some imperfections where the bearing has seated inside here. It's got a little bit of stuff on it. All I'm going to do is try to clean that up a little bit. Right here on this one edge. I'm doing it with 220. I think probably 400 would be better, but I don't have any 400. think that's going to get it right there. Yeah, feels pretty good. I'm going to take my little rag, go in here and clean everything out. Just want to clean that out real good. Right there. Yeah, that feels pretty good. That's going to do it. Alrighty. And my bearing. These bearings, you don't want to put these bearings in here and get them crossways. I don't believe they're directional. They don't look to be directional. But my understanding is you do not want these to go in there crooked. So you want to make sure you put them in there correctly. I'll put a little bit of axle grease in there just to get it to where she'll go in there a little better. Everything flows a little better with some axle grease on it. Alright. You want that thing to go in there pretty straight. A good old copper mallet. Hard to beat that little dude. My little tool. Look at that little tool. Look at that. Isn't that cool? A cool little tool. I already see it's kind of crooked, so I'm going to hit it to this edge. Alright. Still a little crooked. Okay. Now we're there. I think we're going pretty good. Going in there pretty straight. You just want to keep checking it. Make sure you're going in straight. Sound like she hit solid on the back side. See there? So the bearing's in. That looks pretty dang good. Pretty doggone good right there, peoples. So the bearing's in now. Seal time, just as important. Put that seal in there properly. This is the old seal. Yep, that new seal looks pretty good. Pretty good. All right. I'm going to do the same thing with it that I did with the other. I'm just going to put a little dab of grease in here. That just makes everything slide better. You know what I'm saying? Just a little bit of grease. We're going to do the same thing with the seal we did with the bearing. Very carefully. We're going to get her lined up in the... Oh, look at her. Want to see? They just want to make you look bad. Oh, get in there, you little booger. That looks pretty good. Guess what we're going to use? We're going to use that handy dandy tool we made. We didn't buy it, we built it. We're going to start tapping her in there. She's a little crooked in there. I want to get her in there crooked. Dang it, man. Oh, she's starting to go there. Okay, she's in. See, that orange stuff is your sealant around that edge. Now here's what I'm going to do. Give that bearing a little dose of goodies. Run a little bit of grease in there. Run some grease in that axle seal. Man alive. Now we've got an axle bearing. That's them things, honestly, you're talking about 200,000 miles plus with these little boogers. She's in there there like she's supposed to be. Somebody say hallelujah. Okay, I know this is going to seem super simple to some of you, but a lot of people don't know it. A really good chisel, and I say really good, this is from Harbor Freight. If you can see that, just a good chisel will take this gasket material off like butter. Y'all, don't go too deep, especially on aluminum stuff, or you'll gouge it, but if you'll look, see how simple, it just cuts through it, y'all, like butter. Look at that. That gasket material just gone. Look at that. See it just coming off of there? I'm gonna come on this other side. Look at this right here. Watch this edge. It is like butter. Stud girdle pieces back in. The reason why you do that is you don't want to tighten this differential cover back down on there with these touching. You got to get the cover on there, torque down, or whatever you're going to do, and you'll screw those down till they touch and go from there. So there it is. Pretty. So let me show you real quick what we've got. So what you'll look right there is my 8.8 inch rear end, finally done. 410 gears. It has a mini spool in it. It's got the factory Ford Explorer brakes on it. They're ample for a Mustang, I'm telling you right now. I did not pull off, and I haven't painted these backing plates yet, but I will. But though I left the backing plates on there, you could take those off if you wanted to. And really, it wasn't until after I got them on there I was like, I could have taken those off. But I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't affect it one way or the other. Keeps a little dust off your disc brakes a little bit. I'm putting it back on there. I'm not running Willwood brakes. I am going to run a Willwood master cylinder, but I'm running the factory brakes. I'm actually running the brake pads and the rotors that was on the Explorer that I pulled this rear end out of. I'm just going to put that back in there and run it. Again, there was quite a bit of life left in the brake pads. I'll wind up changing them before long, but I'm going to run them like they are for right now. So now I'm just about to stick this in the car for the final time, Lord willing, and bolt it in. It feels like we went backwards. We did, but we wound up putting new axle bearings in, axle seals. We made good use of a screw up. So here we go. Let's get this rear end in the car. Okay, we're going to stop that video right there. There's still a lot left to do. The rear end is back in the car. We've got the brake setup in it. It's not completely done. My next project is going to be a complete brake system for this car. I am going to put together a full recipe of everything on this car. In fact, I'm going to do a video about the brakes, but I'm also going to do a video on the whole build itself. Point a couple things out to you. I do now, and it's a link is in the description, I do now have the complete parts guide made. It's available through Gumroad. They published it for me, and you can get a book that's got the parts guide. Now, this is specifically for the 67 and 68. It has the parts numbers, it has pictures, illustrations and everything else. It's really a great guide. You can use it for other generations of Mustangs, although I will have those other generations done here really soon. So anyway, I hope things are just absolutely peachy keen with you, and I hope life is treating you well. I've got another video that I'm going to start probably today that is going to be about the brake system, and the brakes that I'm going to put on this car, I'm going to take away and save some money. So I'll show you how to do that with a Mustang. So that's the story. All right, man. Thanks.